this is a pretty good thing to have if you have want to take apart guns, but it's also for cars too. I noticed something else that's on here besides having the correct type of slotted screwdrivers, because these screws on the pistols and rifles have a special. You want to use a special type of screw driver bit that is flat ground. It doesn't come in at an angle, and it fits in a slot exactly, so you don't booger up the screws. Especially sometimes you get in there kind of tight. I noticed on this old replica Colt 1851 black powder that all the screws were basically loose on it, and it's a good thing. So when you fire it, and they really come loose, and it'll jam up. So, but there's another thing about this it has too. This is the they call it security bit set, and there are types of torx wrenches that actually they're called security bits, and sometimes you'll see these on cars, like when you're installing an ignition switch. They're a little bit different, and you won't be able to use a regular torx driver to get in there to remove the screw. You have to use a special security type. It does have those too, so that's pretty handy to have. And it's got a number of things. I don't even know what some of these are, to tell you the truth. This is like it's not a torque screw, but it's a little bit different than by having this recess in here like that too. That's something a little bit different. I don't understand all these bits are for, but one of these days I'm going to find out that I need them. This looks like you have it's where it's not a screw, but it's designed where you can't put a screwdriver, and you have to use this special type of bit because it would have like two prongs in there, the two slots where these two prongs would go into. Probably a little more obvious with this one. Now, sometimes these aren't always with rifles or pistols or anything, but it could be for automotive work. And a lot of stuff out there, it's got these kind of weird-ass fasteners because they don't want people taking them apart. And like usually it's in with the automotive where the one example I came across was ignition lock systems, where you need a torque security type bits, not the regular torques, and this does have the torque security type. But the other side, for like this pistol and stuff, this bit, it's not like on a taper, it's like flat. And since they're flat ground like that, they fit in the screw perfectly, and you can get them out of there. So I'm going to be using these, maybe take apart my Marlin 1894 at some point. I don't want to do it right now because it's actually working fairly well. But if I start, taking apart changing some parts in here, putting slicker parts in later on, but take it apart, I'm going to use this bit set to do it with. But it's not strictly for, like I said, it's not strictly for pistols or guns or anything. I know it has automotive applications, but it could have more applications than that. But what's fortunate sometimes, this is not a professional set. This is like a $19.90 set off of eBay. It's called Hiltex, made in China, but good enough for unprofessional use. That's the way I look at it. So, because I'm not a professional, I'm an unprofessional. One of the things in here it's a magnet. Maybe it's magnetized. So, and you don't really need to use this. You can actually use a socket directly on a driver. I might have an actual correct socket thing that fits on here that's integrated into the handle. Might have one of those laying around. That would be the perfect tool, but this could save you a lot of garbage because you don't want to use regular screwdrivers taking apart any pistols. You could do it sometimes, but maybe once in a while, but you can kind of screw them up. You want to use these ones that are specially designed for it. But since it's not, this just comes with a whole bunch of more stuff too. And it's one of these things where you gotta remember where the hell you keep it. So it's going to my red toolbox that's marked screwdrivers. Because it's one of the problems. You're not going to be using this too often. Maybe, you don't take a gun apart too often. You don't work on your ignition lock too often. and you don't get into these weird type of fasteners too often. But you want to be able to find this when you need it. So it's going in my red toolbox that is marked, that we're on a drawer that's marked screwdrivers, and it's going in that drawer, so I'll know where the hell it is. Because that's one thing I've been finding out. Well, one thing I've always found out, you want to label everything. If you label things, you can find it. But for, you know, and if you get the good stuff, I mean, yeah, that's way more than $100. And the good stuff is going to last you a long time. Now, if you're a gunsmith and you're doing this stuff all day, you don't want to be using this junk for like $19.90. It's probably going to wear out and break or something, or get rounded out and get deformed, and it's not going to fit in the screw as well. But for occasional use, for somebody like me, this is perfect, you know. So, probably be doing some work on my Marlin 1894 later, even though I got it figured out pretty well. Not too bad now. This thing I ain't shot yet, but I'm glad I tightened up all the screws on it, because there'd be a problem, especially if you lose some screws when you're out there shooting, and, you know, then you'd be ordering them, paying shipping and all this other garbage, and trying to find the right screw for this thing. That would be a pain. So make sure everything's tight. And that's actually, you want to make sure that's the golden rule on anything. With any of the rifles or pistols they have, especially like the Marlin lever actions and the Winchesters, make sure all the screws on there are tight, because after a while they come loose, and so you just want to snug them down. That's the perfect thing for it. For under $20, not bad, under delivered.